I wanted to elaborate on what I mean about giving up. What I mean is that, like, this is not only applicable in life, but also in tech. I know that we're often told by people that we should persevere in the face of adversity, but I think that developing the skill of knowing when to adjust the course is also an important skill. Yes, grit is important, but so is being able to take note of the current condition or the current environment and to adjust our heading accordingly. So I think in terms of tech, one of the benefits that we can do or we can acquire whenever we develop a skill of giving up is, we don't have to swim against the river. And the river here, or the current, is the architecture of the package, or, you know, just whatever library it is that we're using. Furthermore, I'll say that by doing this, we can focus on the core functionality of what it is we want to build by standing on the shoulders of giants. And yeah, if we utilize something that's already been built by an army of people around the world, then I think that we can deliver much more value much more quickly. So a little bit of background is that I was working on SeepDeep.com, and for those of you that don't know, it's a data structures and algorithm study platform. So essentially, what it is a code editor online, which you can submit code to and basically get your code evaluated on whether or not you solved a certain problem using a certain pattern or data structure correctly. So that's the main problem, right? Help our customers to learn data structures and algorithms by allowing them to submit code and then basically get feedback on their code, their algorithm to whatever problem that is. So the problem that I ended up having was that my code editor was just not sufficient. The indentation was wrong, like it would indent incorrectly, and the unindent would also be incorrect. Lastly, I would say is that the focus key was super annoying. And what I mean by that is that I basically used this package here from Flutter Code Editor, and I really wanted to persevere and get really familiar with this to challenge myself to get better at Dart, to use the native libraries. People always talk about how awesome it is to use the native libraries and functionality, but sometimes it also like limits the number of people who are supporting you in a way, right? Like this package is only worked on by this one editor by himself, this one developer, and he's not working on it full time. So just know that like a package like this is just like sometimes not as good. So I'll give you a demo of what's going on. So essentially, you can see here that we have this problem, house robber. If I go to house robber, you can see here that here's our code editor. If I were to press enter right now to get a new line, I would expect that my indentation would be right here in this column right below the D, if not to the right of it. But when I press enter, you see that it starts me off all the way at the zero column of this row, which is super annoying. Furthermore, if I press tab, my expectation is that this guy will go further in, but I'm uncertain of what it'll do because it's like a very wishy-washy functionality. So I'm gonna press tab, and it does in fact work. So let's press shift tab, and you can see that shift tab here kind of highlights the whole line instead of going backward. And if I do shift tab again, it starts deleting randomly. So this package is super annoying. It's like, thank you for your work, sir, but the idea here is that it just wasn't sufficient, and this is something that made me want to give up on SeepDeep because I found this thing super annoying to code on, and I didn't want to code on it anymore. But anyway, what did I end up doing? I ended up just making a call to try a different solution. The solution was to try a different editor, Ace Editor, and removing Flutter Code Editor. In doing that, I also had to wire up an embedded iframe to a Flutter application using window messages. So that sounds like a lot, but like really essentially all we do is we have an iframe right here, an HTML file. This guy loads our Ace editor right here, and then we have some custom JS code that's loaded on the following line. Inside this guy, it's not a lot of black magic, or it is a lot of black magic, depending on who you are. But essentially, we just have some messages, some event handlers that will listen for certain events that occur, and then when those events occur, it will send a message back and forth between the Flutter application and the editor. So after doing that, essentially, what did I get for all my work? I ended up getting a brand new code editor inside of SeepDeep. And right now, this is my local version, but the idea here is that in a second, I'm going to go ahead and I'll deploy it. But yeah, inside of this guy, inside of SeepDeep, whenever I look at a problem, you can see now that the code editor looks a little bit different, but the most important thing is that the indentation is working correctly. Right, you see that the cursor is in the correct spot, the correct column, whenever I do that. And then if I press Shift Tab, it also correctly goes back and forth instead of highlighting the whole line and then deleting, which is super awesome. And then lastly, it doesn't change focus. So before, whenever I would press Tab inside the code editor, sometimes the focus would leave the editor and move down to other parts of the UI, which is super annoying. So yeah, I think that is a proof of concept that, for me anyway, that sometimes you got to learn to develop the skill of giving up and accepting that like working hard isn't always the best choice of action given the number of available choices, right? Sometimes giving up and trying a different solution is a better choice. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm kind of curious if that makes sense, or if anyone would beg to differ.